And we're glad you're with us today. Our first guest on this segment is Nancy Congleton. Is that correct?
Yes, Nancy Congleton.
Okay, Congleton. A lot different from Jones. You stumble over all of them. Anyway, Nancy's a graduate of Rogers State University and is not only filling a void, she's speaking out about the need for more who qualify in her field. Nancy, it's good to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
We're going to get to your book in a minute. She is a published author, so stick with me on this. I was amazed to learn that you've been in the business of nursing now for 15 years.
Yes.
So you aren't a novice.
Right.
Why did you choose nursing?
I chose nursing because, to be just very honest, I needed something that was secure. I needed an occupation that was secure, that was dependable, that was going to pay the bills and get me on a financial path that I needed to be on. And I've always had a nurturing spirit, so that ended up going along with it. So it's just the full package.
Well, then why Rogers State?
Rogers State, I actually had already had 2 degrees from RSU, one in liberal arts and one in the applied science of alcohol and drug abuse counseling. So I was very familiar with the campus, familiar with the teachers. I had great experiences with my first two degree programs, so it was just the automatic natural choice to come back.
I always want to get a plug in for RSU.
I know, me too.
That's a good thing.
Yes.
Have you been enlightened and encouraged by your choice of professions, or have you been a little disappointed?
Both. I have been enlightened and encouraged, and nursing profession, it's a wonderful profession to be in. Not only is it steadfast and secure from a financial perspective, but you can change careers multiple times within the profession and still be within the same profession.
Really?
Yes, and what I mean by that is you can start off working as a med-surg nurse, work in that department for 5 years, and then to say, you know what, I want to do home health, or I want to do hospice. I still want to be a nurse, but I need a different change of scenery, so to speak.
Sure.
And then you jump into that, and it is an initiation process in the sense that you're learning a different area than what you're familiar with, but you get to do something different.
Sure.
And so I love all the options that a nursing profession provides to people. The disappointing thing was jumping into it and realizing I wasn't fully prepared for what I was getting into.
In what way?
In several ways. One of the things was when I was in nursing school, I thought I'd be taking care of patients. That's what nurses do, we take care of patients. But when I jumped into the profession, I realized I have a relationship with doctors that have to be one way. I have a relationship dynamic with patients that is one way. I have another relationship dynamic with family members. I have a relationship dynamic with those that work with me, like nurse aides, nurse techs, that help me take care of my patients. I have a relationship dynamic with mean nurses. That is a problem in the nursing profession. So it's not just a relationship of nurses taking care of patients. We have all these different relationships, and they're separate, and they have their own set of rules. And that was one of the things I wasn't prepared for.
Put together a book. I'm going to hold it up where the camera can get a shot of it. And I was interested to see that the title of the book involves the word autopsy of the NP.
Yes.
Why that choice?
Because when I was looking at the nursing profession and all the things I wanted to impart to future nurses, there were categories that came to my mind, different categories. And you know, one of the categories, my first one I start off with is getting started. I talk about the different educational options that nurses have, whether it's, you know, if you want to go and be an LPN, if you want to be an RN. Then I talk about nursing school in Chapter 2, everything that I can think of that somebody would need to know about just nursing school, the process. Then I have another category of trying relationships and my tips for surviving them, which is the 5 relationship dynamics. I have a category on staying legal and keeping your license. So when I look at the nursing profession and kind of the gray areas that are not covered in nursing school, all of these categories came to the surface. And so that's why I've titled it Autopsy of the NP, Dissecting the Nursing Profession Piece by Piece, because I've broken it down into these categories that future nurses need to know about, be aware about, so that they can thrive.
You're at St. John,
Yes.
and I've always felt as though any nurse is much the same as a doctor because you're there on the firing line. You're where the rubber meets the road in dealing with the patients.
Yes.
But there's so much in terms of ancillary responsibilities that we don't hear about.
Right.
What are some of the big ones?
I think some of the big ones are knowing what to tell patients. You know, there are times that testing comes back, lab work comes back. We know the answer, we know the problem, and patients are saying, hey, did my MRI come back? Did my CT come back? What did it say? And the nurse knows the answer, but that's not something that we're supposed to tell them. It's something that the doctor is supposed to come in and go over with them. But what we've found is that a lot of times patients feel closer to nurses than they do the doctor. They see the nurse more often, so they want to ask us some of those questions. And that's one of the things that, you know, nurses have to be careful about, is not giving away those things, because the doctor needs to go over some of those things and talk to them about next steps and treatment plans. But we're on the front line, so they come to us.
I would venture that just about any nurse, regardless of where he or she goes to school, is going to have that first or second or third year jitters.
Yes.
While they learn the ropes, because there are things that they don't even teach doctors,
right,
you know, in med school about how to interact with certain situations along the way. I would also venture that nursing is as far as the education is concerned, never ends.
It doesn't end. And that's one of the things that I talk about in my book. I have a chapter that's titled Nursing School Doesn't Cover Everything You Need to Know. And our instructors were upfront about that. They said, we're going to cover the foundation of nursing practice, and then we're going to touch on geriatric nursing, pediatric nursing, medical surgical nursing. But what really is going to be dependent on your success is when you go out there and you pick the area you're going to practice in, then you really dig in and learn everything you can. So if you graduate from nursing school and you become a pediatric nurse, then you dig your heels in and you learn every single thing that you can, because if nursing school covered every single situation in all of those different areas, we'd be in nursing school forever.
Tell me something. Yeah. I have never been able to understand how a doctor could take off his or her hat after dealing with some of the cases they deal with and go home to a family situation, you know, where things are peachy keen.
Right.
It works the same with nurses, doesn't it? I mean, you guys can't take off your hat after you've dealt with children that have suffered incredibly. How do you do it?
Well, it's definitely something that's a work in progress. Trying to figure out a way to focus on other things is part of it. For me, when I get home, I have my nursing bag that has my stethoscope, all my stuff. It goes in the corner of a room, and I don't pick it up, I don't touch it until my next shift. Also, taking time off, scheduling time off. I myself have been in a pattern before of, I don't have a big trip planned, so I'm not gonna take PTO. At one point, I had over 250 hours of PTO saved up.
Explain what that is.
So that's paid time off, paid time off. And I realized that I was really cranky, and I couldn't figure out why I was cranky, and it finally occurred to me because I hadn't taken time off. So one of the things that I encourage other nurses to do is, it doesn't matter if you're not gonna go out of town or if you don't have a big family trip planned, schedule routine time off. Even if it's just staying at home and catching up on TV and binge watching, just take time off so that you have that disconnect from that stress and from all of those experiences.
I gotta ask you, this is a silly question, and I know you like silly questions from time to time. When you watch a doctor show, if you do, on television, you ever go, oh, that's not real, that doesn't happen that way? Do you ever fall into that?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
And you're ready with a critique?
Yes.
Lord, I'd love to hear it. Because some of these doctor shows leave a lot to be desired and rip the medical profession in such a way, I don't think the writers even realize that they're damaging the patient's perception of medicine and medical care.
Right.
You know, so they're going, wait a minute, is that what goes on behind the scenes?
Yes, and sometimes I've seen scenes on TV where a doctor does a task, and in real life, it's a nurse who actually does that task. That's not a doctor required task. A nurse has that skill, and a nurse does that task. That really frustrates me too. That really gets me.
You know, I was a music major. I didn't have any of these problems. Hey, listen, Nancy, thank you for coming on. And again, the name of the book, Autopsy of the NP.
Yep, Dissecting the Nursing Profession Piece by Piece.
Well, anyway, grab a copy. It's a good book to have in any library. And thank you for coming by, all right?
Thank you so much.
We'll talk again.
Thank you so much.
All right. We'll be back, because still to come is the cup half empty or half full. One group says they've found the answer to both questions. More after this.